I'm Lisa G, back with another episode of Technically Speaking. Today I have with me Lynzie Riebling. She is the VP of Insights at Revolt Media. She's a badass all around. She's amazing. She specializes in qualitative research, and she spends her days analyzing, as she called it, thick data. She loves identifying emerging youth trends, tracking consumer shifts within the Millennial and Gen Z mindset, and mapping out the ever-evolving media landscape. Thanks for joining us today, Lynzie. How are you?
I'm delighted. I mean, as well as I can be given the state of the world, but you know, it's day to day, and today I'm having a good day, so we'll take it.
Yes. So, tell the people a little bit about yourself, your background, your journey. How did you become the trailblazer that we are speaking with today?
Oh, how did I become a trailblazer? Wow.
Of course.
No pressure. So I actually am one of the rare people who figured out what I wanted to do really early on. My industry, most people call my industry market research or consumer insights. Most people start out somewhere else and then kind of fumble into insights. I realized really early this is what I wanted to do. So I majored in college. My associate's degree was in psychology, but I realized I was way too emotional to be a clinical psychologist. So I got out of that. And then my bachelor's degree was in marketing. And my junior year in college, I took a class in market research. And I was just like, whoa, like totally dumbfounded that this wasn't even a job. I was like, I could get paid to talk to people? Like what? So, and my professor at the time had worked with Banana Republic and was doing shop-alongs. And I was like, I could get paid to go shopping with people? Like, you know, in my head, job. So I went into that field directly out of college. I had an internship at MTV in New York and just stuck to it. And I had so much fun. I mean, that was like a dream job, just back in like the heyday of Teen Mom and Jersey Shore and 10, 12 years ago now, and just leaned into it. And so I went agency side for a while in New York City, and I worked, it was like, anyone who's worked agency side knows it's like the fast track to your career. I worked on every industry and every brand ever, from pharmaceutical, working on like very rare diseases, to working with the WWE and interviewing John Cena, and like literally anything in between those two extremes. And then came out to LA, and I think my like favorite industry has always been the entertainment industry. Maybe I'm biased because that's where I started, but there's a lot more room to play. I mean, you know, like in the pharma world, there's a lot of red tape and a lot of legalities, versus in film and TV, there's a lot more freedom, a lot more kind of flexibility. And so I've always enjoyed the entertainment space, and LA was really the place to do it. And so I popped around a little bit. I worked for a national research group that does mostly film work, and then Live Nation and Ticketmaster, and then found my home with Diddy at Revolt.
Yes. I always tell people that entertainment is a good place to start, but you know, people immediately think, oh, well, you have to be a creative, or you have to be, you know, into this box. And you know, so many people always say like, well, you're in tech, how did you get into media entertainment? Tech is everywhere, and a lot of people don't look at insights as tech, and I'm like, hello, duh, yes it is, because insights is nothing but data, and data is really the traffic and like really drives a lot of decision making in companies, and you know, it's really that driving force. So I'm always fascinated to hear people different backgrounds and stories about how they, you know, came into the industry, especially like the entertainment industry. That's amazing. And yes, the agency world will fast track you so fast.
I know.
You do everything in the agency. I always tell people that's a good place to start. Working at an agency of any sort will help you think quick on your feet.
Yep.
It will definitely test your patience, all of the above, but you get that great experience because you work on so many different things at an agency. So that's really good.
And it's funny because now in my 30s, I couldn't imagine I'm so glad. I've said this to people before. People are like, oh, people who have always been brand side and now like halfway through their career, they're thinking of switching to agency. And I'm just like, I get exhausted thinking about it. I'm just like, I get PTSD from like all the holidays I worked, birthdays I missed, Valentine's Day I missed. Like, I remember one Valentine's Day, my coworker's husband showed up at the office at like 9 p.m. with 2 dozen roses for me and her. And I was just like there, like, oh, my life's so sad. Like, it's grueling, but I'd say like doing a 5-year stint in agency world is like doing 15 years brand side. So it's worth it.
Yep, it's definitely worth it. And people get that core experience. So once you come out of an agency, you can do anything. I tell people that. It's
like great for people who are just getting out of college too, because you can quickly learn what you like and you don't like. Like for me, I really quickly saw that I appreciate market research, but specifically I like more provocative, non-traditional. And so getting to work with more creative brands and more creative industries is really my passion, versus I know people who worked at that same agency and leaned into pharmaceutical world, and that's what they love. And so I think it's a good way to find kind of where you want to pivot to.
Leading into that, what do you think is the most important part of your role being an expert in data insights?
I've thought about this one actually before. The most important skill set, I think it's different at different times in my career, but speaking now in my 30s in a more senior role, I definitely think authority is such a strong kind of pillar that you want to be able to stand on in this world. And I guess that can be kind of confusing, but what I'm trying to say is like trustworthy, right? Like you have to be someone people can trust, and someone who, you know, when they deliver data, they deliver insights, it's coming from an authoritative space and not just someone pulling it out of thin air. Because the reality is, which I think our entire society has learned in recent years, there's so much like fake news and fake stats and fake everything out there. And so having that reputation where your data is always reliable and you're doing it in ways that you can justify and are scientifically sound, I think is really important. I think just like being trustworthy, being reliable, being an authority in the space. And, you know, for me, that space wound up being youth culture. And it wasn't on purpose. It just happened by default as I went along, that I kept leaning into that because I was passionate about it. And now people are like, oh, you want to know something about young people? Go to Lynzie. She's the one you can trust. So I think like picking a niche and then developing a reputation in that space is really important. And like being able to use a PowerPoint or a keynote and like really good presentation skills. If anyone told me how many slides I'd be putting together as part of my career, like, oh, I would have never. But, you know, some of those things that are more traditional would be like public speaking, presentation skills, because you have to be able to present and support the information. Storytelling for sure. I think, I know that became like a big buzzword a few years ago and everyone was sick of like storytelling. I'm a storyteller. I'm a data storyteller in everyone's LinkedIn bio. But it's true that I think it's super rare to find someone who's like left brain and right brain.
Right.
You can read the data, but then you can deliver it in a really digestible way. And it's like tangible for a normal human, because 9 out of 10 times the people I'm presenting to are not data type of people. They're not analysts. It's usually a production crew, the content team, the ad sales team. And usually it's people who just want to be able to, you know, those quick, sexy stats. So being able to take this jumbled data and turn it into hot takes is really important too.
That leads me into, how do you bring your data to life?
Oh, yeah. I love that you asked that. Ironically, I swear I did not do this on purpose, but I just happened to be using this, which I know that you've seen, this beautiful... We set this up. We didn't set this up, y'all. I just was on a call right before this. I have this Japanese I keep in the guest room, and I was on a call right before this where I had to go run and grab one because I was referencing it. But that's been a huge thing for me, and I actually, taking it back, I credit my time on vendor side or agency side. I worked for a really small shop in New York called Now What. It's still around and still killing it. And the founder there, Paul, really like embedded in me from a very early time in my career that your insights are only as valuable as they are deliverable. And so, like, you know, if you have the best insights in the world, but if you deliver them in like a boring Word document or PDF, no one's reading that shit, and it's gonna get like thrown away on someone's desktop. So, you know, when I was there, we did all kind of, I mean, we did board games, we did infographics, we did trading cards, anything, you know, videos, and that really kind of sparked my passion for the deliverable side of things. And since I left, I carry that everywhere I go now. And so at Revolt, we did this huge study into young hip hop audience, which we dubbed Gen Hip Hop. I was like, there's no way we're spending all this money on this like amazing project and then just putting out a PDF. Like, we have to make something people want to pick up, something sexy. And so I pushed so hard, which is hard in our industry, because typically when you get a budget, you don't get a production budget for a really deliverable. You just get the survey budget or the research budget. And so with this one, I really pushed to not cut any corners. Like, we had like the raised cover and the soft touch. And, you know, we did a lot of point and shoot film photography. So it looked very DIY. And this one in particular obviously came out in magazine format, and it was something that, you know, we want to do an annual issue of the Gen Hip Hop magazine. But in general, asking how do I deliver my insights, I'd say anyway non-traditional, and a lot of times multimedia. I love video clips. I love, like, I don't want to sit up there and present, you know, and be like, here's what I found. I want to show you, like, this is what they said. This is what the youths are talking about, like, straight from their mouth. Listen to them. Like, I don't want to be repeating it. I want to show you. And so I think, you know, and we're in like such a YouTube era as we're on, you know, video right now. I think video and quotes and all those, like, you know, touchy-feely moments that people can experience are so important when you're delivering data.
That is so important. And I love how you broke that down. And guys, leading into Gen Hip Hop, I was going to save that, but this is an amazing, amazing piece of work, curated and produced by Lynzie. And how I refer to it as, this is the blueprint that brands need to follow, whether they know it or not. This is the blueprint. This is it. This is the blueprint that tells you how you need to talk to millennials, how you need to talk to Gen Z. And you know what? I know that people think of Revolt as, hey, this is hip hop culture, etc. This can be used across all industries. If you want to know how to talk to the youth or millennials or Gen Z, how to grab that audience, because I know a lot of big companies, especially media companies, struggle with that. Like, how, especially the legacy companies, how do we talk to the millennials? How do we talk to Gen Z? And the first thing that I'm like, go grab this. This is what you need to read. Yes, it is all about, you know, hip hop culture and things and that such, but you can learn so much valuable information on how the data collected and how they're able to talk to the millennials and talk to Gen Z and talk to the youth culture about what's happening in life, of what's going on, and not just about hip hop. And you learn so much about their culture. This is the blueprint that every brand out there needs. Seriously.
Thanks, Lisa. No, I appreciate that so much. And like, everything you're saying is exactly going into it. I think if you're part of the culture, you just already know a lot of these things to be true. And we have all these hypotheses, but like, the reality is hip hop culture is American culture. You know, it's a #1 genre. And especially when you're talking about that slice of like 16 to 29, 18 to 34, like youth culture, it's what drives them. We were just going through some of these stats today, like 80% of youth say hip hop inspires them on a daily basis. Like, it's a huge influence in their life. You can't even, on a regular day when we're not in quarantine, you can't even walk down the street or go to a sporting event, get in a taxi, do anything for 24 hours and not be exposed to hip hop culture in some way. It is just so woven into American culture today that, yeah, this magazine is not supposed to be like, here's this small little audience and here's a microscope on them. Like, no, this is just ripping down kind of pulling back the curtain and showing you this is America. Like, this is really what's going on today in society. And if you're an older executive and you're thinking hip hop is this small little genre happening in someone's basement in New York City, news for you, newsflash. It's not. It's everywhere. And so it makes me so happy to hear you say that.
It really is. Speaking with some of my clients that I currently work with, that are major publishers, and they're like, how do we get, subscribers of that younger genre? And I'm like, you guys need to talk to Gen Z, figure it out. I brought it up in different meetings. You should be following this blueprint. You don't have to follow like necessarily the hip hop portion of it, but just the method that you took to perform the research and to get this data. It's like, this is how you grab the attention of younger audience. This is how you get them to subscribe to your content. This is how you get them to vouch for you and subscribe and make your content go viral. It's like, you need them more than they need you.
Yeah. we even learn things. Of course, like, working at Revolt, we're pretty deep into it every day. And so some of the stuff is like being able to prove the things we already knew to be true in numbers. But some of it was even new to us. Like this came out January of this year, right? So pre-quarantine and pre, the unfortunate deaths that have happened and, the riots that are going on and protesting. No more riots, thank God. But all the protests that's happening and peaceful protests, and this entire Black Lives Matter movement was already underway, but obviously it's gained a lot more traction. And so what we saw as part of this in January was one of the top 3 things that mattered to Gen Z the most was social justice. And so we had already started leaning into that angle. And then when everything happened over the last 4 months or so, we were already going down that route. So it wasn't this huge pivot for us. We were like, oh no, all of a sudden we need to focus on social justice now. Like, luckily we had already done the work, we were already tapped in, and all we had to do was lean into that lane. But it was, there's definitely been some real validating moments where we've been able to look back and go, oh, we knew that was going to happen, or oh, we predicted this. And so I hope that I keep looking over because it's right here. But I really hope, to your point, that this does inspire someone in a different industry to do a really similar piece of work, because it's proven to be so valuable to us, and just the conversations I've been able to have because of it. The doors that have been opened because of it. It's been so beyond valuable versus, the money we invested to it versus what we've gotten back out of it. Well worth it. So I hope someone else does do something similar in another industry.
As they should. They definitely should. Speaking of numbers, this is a quote that I've been seeing, a question that I've been seeing a lot floating around. You know how Jay-Z says numbers don't lie? Do you feel that to be accurate? Because, sometimes being in data, sometimes people like, the data is skewed here. Like, the numbers aren't always accurate. That's just what some people say. But what is your take on that? Being that you are the expert around data insights, do you feel like the numbers are always accurate?
No, definitely not. Not that I don't love Jay-Z. I love Jay-Z. Not to debate him. But no, and I was alluding to that a little bit earlier, because I think we've seen that so many times over now, right? Especially in politics in recent years. I've always been someone who challenges numbers, and that's why I veer on the more qualitative side and less on the quantitative. There's a time and a place for everything, and I definitely do a fair amount of quant research and, really deep survey based with a huge, sample size of thousands or so. But there's just so many things that can go wrong, and there's so many times where I've seen numbers and you're just like, oh, okay, but you're not taking this into account. Oh, okay, you're not taking, I just got into an, I know this could take us off track, so I'm trying to not make it, but I just got into arguing with somebody recently about oh, well, the crime rate's higher in Black neighborhoods. Okay, well, the police is, they're 3 times more. There's more police population in these neighborhoods too. Or, they're not taking into account a lot of the reasonings behind these numbers. And I think we're seeing that happen a lot right now in this movement that's going on. People trying to justify stuff with like really fake numbers that are super biased and don't take into account the why. And that's why I appreciate qualitative research, because qual really focuses on the why. So if I found, 17 people clicked onto Lisa's website, but then I have no context as to what was going on, what inspired them to go there, what was their mindset when they got there. Those are all the things I care about, because then we can figure out how to duplicate that process and get more people to the website. But yeah, to answer, I find it very rare that data isn't skewed. I'll say that. I think more times than not, it is skewed. And I try not to be that person who just like spends my days poking holes in data, because we could all do that. Right. So it's a slippery slope though, because then there's stuff I see and I'm like, oh my God, that's beautiful, that's amazing, that's so interesting. And when you believe the numbers, you don't want to poke holes in it, because you're like, this is what I wanted to say. So, but you just never know the methodology involved, and that's kind of the like questionable part.
Gotcha. So for millennials and Gen Z, I think that we're aware that they're shaping the future. Like that, they're the ones who are really like shaping the future. They're using technology. They are really being that driving force behind culture being pushed forward, no matter what industry that it is. What other work do you think needs to be done for brands to understand this?
A couple things. One, I think today more than ever, and it'll be true again tomorrow and the next day and the next day, we're seeing the younger generation use their voice in ways we could have never imagined when we were their age.
Right.
And I think that it's so funny when you think about traditional research, when you think about a focus group facility, and you're like, let's get 6 strangers into a room and ask them their opinion on things. No, this generation is like, what the fuck is this? Like, no, like if I want to share my opinion, I'll go to Twitter, I'll go to Instagram, I'll go to Yelp or the page and leave a review or whatever. So I think it's actually, I've gotten quite excited about some of the innovation that's happened during quarantine, because I've been such a digital girl for so long that to now see everyone has to be forced into the digital world, I'm like, ha ha ha. Like I have such a leg up on this because I've been doing it for the last 8 years, that I'm just like, how are y'all just now figuring out that you need to be doing stuff on mobile, stuff on online? Like it's crazy to me. So I would highly encourage brands to lean into that, because at the moment, it's really all we can do is this digital research, but B, that's where this generation is sharing their opinions most comfortably anyways. If we have a mobile community at Revolt Nation with 10,000 people in it, and I can shoot off a text at any given moment and they get an alert, and I can ask them to watch a trailer, or I can ask them, how are you feeling in quarantine? Are you ready to get back outside? Are you good now? Anything I want to ask, right? Within minutes, I'll have responses back, and they're on their phone, which is their native place to be sharing their opinion. There's just so many things that we can be doing with technology. A lot of people just got comfortable. A lot of people, brand side, agency side, are older and used to those more traditional ways and just keep going in that same cycle because it works. And they're like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But it's been broken. I'm like, doesn't want that. Like, so I'm rambling now, but I'm saying
I love it. I love it though, because you're telling the truth. And this is something that, that needs to be heard and that we preach. And I've been saying the same thing. Like, I've been doing a lot of talks about digital transformations, and it's just like, guys, I was talking about this stuff 5 years ago. Like, hello, why are we now revisiting these things? Because of a pandemic. You should have been prepared for these things, especially as like some of the bigger corporations. And it's just like, guys, we should have been on top of this.
Right.
And that's how I feel about, when it comes to people doing like data research and things. Why weren't you doing data research from the beginning? Like, why do you not know who your target audience is? Like, how do you not know who you're talking to? And especially right now, data science, data analytics, data insights, those are hot fields within the tech industry. Like, everyone wants something to do with data. And it's just like, hey, how do you not have a data team? How do you not have this? And, I've run into a lot of mid-size companies mid-size, I consider people who have more than 200, maybe 200 to 500 employees that do not have data teams. And it's just like, well, you're not prepared for what's happening right now. So how do you want me to come in and do a digital transformation for you when you don't have data and insights? I mean, that's very important. Like, data and insights really is like that pivot that helps the company make sound decisions, especially like some of the stakeholders in leadership. They look for data to back these decisions that people are pitching. And it's just like, how are you guys not ready for this? But now that we're in a pandemic, everyone's scrambling and trying to get everything together. And it's just like, you should already be ready so you don't have to get ready. That's one of my mantras.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's true. It's exactly what you're saying too. I don't know how anyone does something strategically if they're not taking data and insights into account. It's like, what are you basing your decisions on? Are you just shooting from the hip and hoping for the best? Or like, and that's okay when you're an entrepreneur and like you said, you're a team of one or two and you're really getting off the ground. But when you've gotten to that size and you're expanding teams and you haven't considered like, it boggles me. It's the same, like, I was laughing earlier because I always joke with my friends, like when you go to these big research conferences and you have a few hundred people there, and they are traditionally, some of the more like the bigger research conferences do tend to skew older and white. And we'll be in these rooms and someone, says like, oh, something online ethnography. And you see everyone just like taking note, online. And I'm like, oh, what? Like, it just boggles my mind that like stuff that like, again, I was doing when I was working for that company now, 10 years ago when I started there, this was our bread and butter. And I'm like, people are still like catching on to it. It's just wild. It's crazy how slow people are to adapt in general. Maybe that's the takeaway.
It is. And especially like, and I know this has nothing to do with like data and things, but like even companies now who are now forced to let people work from home. But, they frowned upon it at first, like, no, we don't allow it. We don't have those capabilities. Right. Yeah, well, the world made you figure that out really fast, didn't it? So, it's just like, why? I always question like some of these like legacy brands and companies or legacy systems, like, why aren't you up on top of these type of things? But, that's why people like us exist. We're the experts. We can come in and whip them right into shape and have them on their, their mighty way of like growing their brands and, looking to us for leadership. So that's how we can wrap that up. All right. So to wrap up the interview, I always like to ask something random.
Oh.
What is the last thing you Googled?
Oh, God. Can I look? Let's see.
I always catch people off guard with that. And I started being caught off guard with it when people would ask me and I'd be like,
The last thing I Googled was, doesn't sit right with my spirit. Because I was posting something on Instagram. I saw this really great quote this morning, and the quote was from Banksy, the artist. The quote was, if you get tired, learn to rest, not quit.
Yes.
And I love that. And I thought, oh, that's so good. And so I was putting on Instagram and I was trying to remember exactly word for word because originally I was like, what did Kanye say that doesn't sit right with my soul? I was like, no, that doesn't right. So I had to Google, and because I was like, this sits right with my spirit. And that was my caption on Instagram. So, wow. Thanks for exposing me, Lisa.
That's too funny. Also, another thing, what is your mantra that you live by? What's your mantra?
It's funny. I did this like workshop one time where they helped us like come up with our own based on our views on the world. And I found mine to be very appropriate for years now. It's been on my LinkedIn. And I'm probably going to butcher it because I haven't seen it in a while, but it's something along the lines of embrace disruption, never settle for status quo.
Love that.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes. And I feel like that's so true to our whole conversation we've been having.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that totally fits you. Hello, like you're this expert leader in data insights and yeah, like disrupting the status quo. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Do you have any other advice for anyone seeking to follow your footsteps of being in data insights, data research, consumer insights? What are some words of wisdom that you would like to leave with them?
Yeah, I think people ask me a lot of time, like, what did I major in college? And so I know some people have gotten into this field though with the most obscure majors. So I don't even know that, I did marketing and psychology, but there are market research majors as well. I think something important to know, and I talk about this a lot, is just, you could be doing your own research with your friends, And so I think I've never had it happen, but if someone was to come to me and say, or email me or contact me on Instagram, hey, I did this like quick little group session with my friends and I wanted to understand their views on whatever it might be right now, quarantine or technology or whatever. And I put the findings just from like a circle of 6 friends. We got on Skype or we got a pizza together, whatever. Here's what I thought. That would be so amazing. And I think anyone who works in this field would just be so blown away by like a young person taking the time to sit with their friends. It's sometimes it's that simple. It's just having a conversation with your friends, taking in different opinions, and then storytelling the findings. And so I think if you are younger and thinking about getting in this field, you can be doing your own little think tanks on your own, through FaceTimes or house party or anything. So I would encourage just doing that seeing if that's something you enjoy doing. Do you enjoy talking to people, understanding their perspectives, and then kind of relaying that information? Because at the very root, that's all I'm doing. Whether it's on a huge scale and I'm doing a mass survey with 3,000 people across America, all I'm doing is programming something, getting their opinion on it, getting it back, digging through the data, and then storytelling whatever it was. And so whether it's 4 people or 4,000, at the root, you really are just collecting information and then delivering it in an appealing way. So I would say try doing it on your own to see if you like it.
Oh my God, that's so inspiring and such good words of advice. Because I feel like that's the younger generation, they need that.
Yeah.
They need that, especially creating their own think tanks. That would be like, that's key. Yes, thanks for dropping that gem on us. Like, hell, I think not just young people, everybody needs to, kind of take that advice.
Yeah, I feel like especially young people now get like this reputation for only being digitally savvy and tech savvy, but not knowing how to present themselves in person. I mean, it's like a stereotype. Even for us, like millennials, it was a stereotype I think we got pigeonholed into a lot. And I don't think that's true, because I've met plenty of young people who are articulate and can present themselves. And so I think disproving that stereotype and being able to present yourself is a wall that can be broken down really easily by doing something like that.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I thank you so much for coming on today, speaking with me, and supporting me on my platform. I look forward to having more of these conversations. Tell people how they can find you as well, too.
Okay. I'm very active on Instagram, but it's a plethora of inspiring career, rollerblading content, food.
But I love it.
You don't know what you're going to get. So just a disclaimer. It's at Hi Lynzie. So HILYNZIE, which is my first name. And then I have the same username on Twitter. I'm trying to get better at Twitter. I'm trying so hard. Instagram is really just like my home base. And then LinkedIn is just my first name, last name. So Lynzie Riebling, last name's RIEBLING. And then, yeah, I think that's pretty much. I'm pretty good about checking my inbox on LinkedIn too. So you can always DM me there or